start by talking to you about that white rose up there. I got notice yesterday that Betty Lundeen was killed in a car accident. And died. Dar was hurt as well. He's in the hospital now, but is expected to get out soon. I just got a note this week from Betty, wonderful letter about what's going on in their life, and it talked about how they just gotten into the new community that they're going to be a part of, one that will be a wonderful, loving support for Dar, especially as he moves out of the hospital. But at the end, it kind of said that means we're not coming back to Arizona. And so it kind of prepared my heart, but I wasn't ready. That's because this doesn't ask for my permission. These kinds of things don't wait for when we're ready, do they? They happen when they're ready. So will you pray with me? Dear God, we thank you for the love you give us, the love we feel in people like Betty and Dar, and it's a love that makes us cry and hurt in a moment like this. So we ask you to remind us again that that love is still here, still possible, and that it always will be. Be with Dar and his family. Help them to feel your presence. For this we pray. Amen. So, let me tell you why Mary was not the favored one. Right? Here this angel comes down and says, behold, the favored one of God. This was a young, very young girl, unmarried, pregnant, poor. All reasons why she had no reason to be favored. It was difficult for her to even see that which we would call necessities, let alone some of the things like hope and peace and joy and love in that space. And in the midst of all that, the writer of this ancient document, this gospel, had the audacity to have a visitor come down from heaven and announce to her, behold, the favored one of God. God is with you. And so starts Luke's gospel. In the midst of, but can only be described as unfavorable circumstances, the love of God was announced. In the midst of what can only be described as a lack of what would typically be presence, God gave the best present of all, His presence. Most ancient documents tell stories of the rich and powerful, usually men, people like Moses and Paul and Odysseus and Gilgamesh and Buddha. And it tells these stories about them and how they had to give up. Very different from a poor, probably uneducated and unmarried teenage girl who had nothing to give up. And see, we often, when we tell our stories, focus on that great and powerful, rich and able, capable. We overlook the smaller stories. We don't elevate people like Mary and her hidden blessings. It's too easy for us to say she's only the mother of a baby. But that child knows how important that life is. Not just the milk that he receives from her breast, but the warmth that comes from her body. And even more important than that are all the intangibles that surround those things that she gives physically. All that which builds him spiritually And if she gives him nothing else, I believe she's given the greatest gift in the world. See, it can seem like a weak quality compared to all those big gifts that we define in wealth and riches and fame. And yet I think it is the very gift that changes the world. You see, we sing a song sometimes at Christmas time that I think is wrong. It says, love came down at Christmas. I don't think it had to come down. I think in that mother's arms, love was already present. In the power of who she was for him, love was already a gift in that child's life. And it's easy to think that somehow God is external to that love which we give to each other. And we've done a whole lot of theologizing about that. We're all sinners and we have to return to, or we have to somehow move from here to there in order to discover this love. But every mother knows better. Despite the momentary brat stages that you have to go through, every mother feels a love in that space and knows that there is something inherent about that child that is incredible, powerful, and that will change the world. Something that gleams out from that child in spite of the poopy diapers and the teenage years and those moments when they have to separate from mom and dad. And she knows this because she looks at that child through a different set of eyes than what we usually use. But we ought to try to capture that vision of each other. Because love changes how we view one another. So, as I was preparing for this, in the midst of all this power of the feminine thing, I had to go to the hardware store in order to recover my manhood. Actually, it's because my feet were cold and I needed a space heater. And as I'm standing in line to pay for it, I hear this man speaking behind me. He talked about a picnic that his family and he were on, and how all of a sudden they were confronted by these illegals with guns who were so hungry they wanted our food. And he said, good thing I had a gun of my own to fight them off. Maybe that's a little too much manhood. Because see, the masculine in our society often compares ourselves by who can do more, better, and we do a lot of competition type of comparing. Who's won, who's captured the most, who's built the biggest legacy. And I have to ask a question in that moment. What, in the midst of all the riches that they had, that they could go out and have a picnic, would giving up their meal that day have cost that much? You see, but to love, we have to step beyond ourselves and the things we grasp. The things we say are mine, I have to have them and I can't live without them. We have to figure out how to say maybe someone else needs it more. See, if we choose to view each other only through the competition that we often have and the opposition that it often causes, sometimes in very real ways, then we miss something important about each other. That person has an essence inherent within them that was not placed there by any of us, and that we can easily miss if we don't look. One truth I've learned in life that's as true as anything I know is that my wife does not have a perfect lover. But neither does her husband. You might relate to this. Maybe you relate to it because you don't have perfect children, or perfect parents, or perfect neighbors, or perfect anybody around you. And so it challenges us to say, are we going to love in the midst of whatever thing we give to each other that says not to? Because there's lots of ways we say not to. 17-year-old girl wrote this. What is love? Asked the child untouched, whose mother's hand he clutched. His tender heart knows only trust, feels only love, knows not of lust. What is love? Asked the blossoming soul, questioning her life's role, struggling to separate infatuation from love's fate. What is love? Asked the youth unenlightened, remembering passion heightened, wondering if it was an act of love, or if not approved by those above. What is love? Asked the united one whose ring reflects the golden sun, hoping it will last forever, that they will remain always together. What is love? Asked the furrowed face, moving at a withering pace. It has remained all around me, to its treasure I have not found the key. What is love? I cannot explain. It includes extremes of happiness and pain. I will never understand love's many hues. Yet I will always know that I love you. We often, maybe usually, define love too small. We start off with questions like, what have you done for me lately? Those transient things that says that if you give me enough, or if you do something, or I can base my relationship with you on something that you've been or done. But that's a small definition, isn't it? Every musical group seems to have some song that tries to explain what love is. Stone Sour said it this way. If you cried out for more, if you reached out for me, I would run into the storm. We're getting closer with that, aren't we? Because in the midst of whatever it is, the storm or whatever, love is what moves us to move, to do, to become, to go towards that other person. But it takes stepping away from ourselves and something that we like, are used to, or want. Love is choosing to open ourselves up and learn about the operating system of the other person. You remember the operating system wars? Which is better, Macintosh or Windows platform? Which phone is better? We've done a whole lot of arguing about which one you should do, instead of choosing to love and maybe learn the operating system of the other person with all its flaws. I'm about ready to get a new phone. And my wife said, maybe you should be like me and have an iPhone, because then you could do, you could see that little girl down in the room and you could see her face. I like my phone. I like my system. I like what works for me, but I like that little girl's face. I love her. So maybe I'll make a different decision and learn a new operating system. Billy Still is a retired pastor in our conference. And he just visited a space that I've talked about before. It's the Inn down at First Church. And he wrote this about that space and about those people in particular. He said, this is how they, the people, those asylum seekers who have come to America, come past their boundaries. This is what they are like. Given new clothes, they washed their dirty ones. When finished, they put those clothes back on and washed the new ones, folded them, then put them back on the shelf. No need to put them back. You can keep them. It's okay. They are for you. They replied, others may need them. Our ours are clean now. We have enough. Then a mother asked if she could have 3 diapers. The program volunteer said, you can have a box full. The mother protested, saying 3 is enough. Many of the reasons why we don't love is because we want more than enough. We step beyond what is enough. We grasp and hold on to all those stuff, and in worst cases, we beat each other with all that stuff. Instead of looking and seeing a person to love who might need it more than us. See, the goal is not to believe in love. Everybody already loves. The goal is to believe in infinite, unconditional, abundant love beyond borders and beyond everything we can imagine. Abundant, unconditional, extravagant love. I don't do that every day. How about you? But that's the goal. That's what we're trying to figure out how to do. How to, in every single moment, let go of something of self so that that other person can have something they need more. Not just with the ones that we already want to love, but maybe especially with the ones that are more challenging to love. Scott, thank you for sharing about what this church did with the AIDS crisis. You stepped into that space, sometimes because you knew those folks, but often without knowing them at all. But choosing love in that moment, to be there with them. So who are the AIDS patients of today? Who is it today that is hidden back in a corner, that is pushed away from the table? Who is it today that is not feeling love? You may know them, but you may not. They may make you really feel comfortable, or they may not. The question is will you let your love carry you into that space? Will you allow that to carry you past whatever fears, whatever challenges, whatever difficulties it will be to that love? Will you let that love carry you past all of those objections in your head? Stone Sour, that group I told you about before, the reason I like the song that I quoted is because of the last verse of the chorus. It says this: "Did I save you? Because I know you saved me too." You see, when we step into that space of love, it is not just that we do something marvelous for them. It's that we are all changed and become something better, different than we've ever been before. All of us are fundamentally shaped by the reality that when it comes to love, there is no limit. Love always multiplies. We've landed in a secret place where conventional wisdom bows to the ridiculous hopefulness of God. Jimmy Fallon, last night, I guess it was 2 nights ago, had a story. You know, he's giving out ugly Christmas sweaters. And so he gave out the one that was in his Advent box, and he gave it out to this woman, and he said, let's give out another one. And they brought up another one to him, and he stepped down the steps to this woman who was right on the front row, and had her stand up and gave her this sweater, and she was surprised because she didn't expect it, but he knew what he was doing. He began to talk about who she was, because she was a Mary, one that had been overlooked and poor and struggling. She'd spent much of her life in spaces that none of us want to see. She'd been in homeless shelters. But in that space, in that cold and unwanted space, she did the most remarkable thing. She chose to love. She looked around her and she saw these girls that were there, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and she said, why don't we start a Girl Scout troop here? in a place where they could have been so easily overlooked, she looked at these girls and she said, I'm going to choose to love you. I'm going to choose to... So she started Girl Scout Troop 6,000. To which Jimmy Fallon said, can I give you $6,000 for that? Choose to love. Choose to love wherever it is that there is barrenness, wherever it is that there's struggle. Choose to love that other person, whoever they are. Choose love. Amen?
Amen.